And I'd just like to open up with some prayer to start out with. So, Lord Jesus, just thank you so much for this time that we're able to get together this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about personal financial planning and effective giving. I just ask that you work through me today and help give me one or two, maybe three things that each man or woman in this church here today that they can take home and apply and use in their personal lives and in their church. I say and do today just honors you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, Wendell mentioned a little bit about my background. I've been doing CPA work, Certified Financial Planner work for 20 years. I've worked with Arthur Andersen, Merrill Lynch, Smith Barney, Morgan Stanley, all the big firms. And then recently, 7 years ago, I launched my own firm. It's an SEC-registered fee-only investment management shop. And we have offices in Columbus, and now we have an office in Naples as well. So that's a little bit about my background. And as Wendell said, I've served on the board, the church board, our finance committee, South Central District, the finance committee there now. So I've got quite a bit of experience on that side as well. Let's see if I was going to go to the next slide here. So Wendell asked me to put this presentation together. It's not, yeah, it's frozen. And he said, let's pour into our pastors. Let's just give them some personal financial strategies, some help on the personal finance side to help them with their personal lives. And he said, you have an hour to do this. So, so I think I'm down to about 40 minutes now. But, yeah.
Go back up. I think, yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you, TJ.
You want it back where you were?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So I put together some topics. Most of what you're going to see here today, I've taught the Dave Ramsey classes at our church. Has anybody been through those classes, Financial Peace University? So a lot of it will kind of be rehashing some of the topics, but at the same time, I'm going to try to tell you a little bit about what I think and what I've seen. Our clientele, we work with about 200 families. Our families have net worths of $1 million or more. And most of the time, our families they've went through life implementing these strategies. That's because, and it shows because they do have a net worth and they're pretty wealthy families. And a lot of it's not rocket science. It's discipline, it's behavioral, and it's just doing the same thing for years and years and years. And you wake up and you're 60 years old and you have a nice sized nest egg. So, I'm going to go through and try to give you, I just hope that each one of you will be able to pull out one or two things that you can take home, implement with your spouse, or even share with one of your friends, or just implement in your personal life. So let's go into the first topic today. I'm going to talk about relating with money. There we go. So if you've been through the Dave Ramsey classes, you know that he talks about, there's always a nerd and there's a free spirit in every relationship. And we always hope that there's either a nerd and a free spirit or two nerds, but no two free spirits. You get that combination and it's hard to keep a handle on your money, your finances, okay? But it can be truly a blessing when you do have a mix of the way that we look at money and the way we approach finances, both having a nerd and a free spirit. The nerd obviously is the one who's going to control the finances, likes to get into the budgets, probably likes spreadsheets, right? And then the free spirit is the one who is going to be, and doesn't have to be a wife. So a lot of people think that the wives are free spirits. It's not always that way, but the free spirit is going to be a little bit more loose, likes to have fun. We have an extra $500. Let's go on a vacation. That's the way they think, that free spirit. So, but it's not just men or women. We see it crossed over both ways. So we always say, like, the 4 pillars of a healthy marriage are faith, in-laws, parenting, and then money. So you know how important it is to get, to be on the same page, financially with your spouse. And we really encourage our clients and the people that we see that really get it as a relationship and then financially, they meet every week or every 2 weeks. They come together and talk about their finances. And I can't tell you how important that is for men and women, if you're in a relationship, to meet and talk about it. And this is a really hard subject. I met with a pastor not too long ago, a very outspoken, very type A kind of personality. This pastor actually, he approached me about financial matters, and not that he was in trouble, but he never talks to his spouse about money. They've never put a budget together, and he's afraid to talk to his spouse about money. And he's a pastor, and so it affects all of us, even people that are more social. This individual is very social, that he has a great relationship with his wife, but there is something there that they're not on the same page. And they can really win and really do well, I think, if they get on the same page financially. So, and if you're not on the same page when that storm does hit, it makes it even worse, right? If you're not on the same page together. So, and sit down, obviously pray at the table, talk about it. If you need to, this individual needed an accountability partner like myself, who's just willing to text him and call him every once in a while and hold him accountable. Are you meeting with your wife? Or have you guys talked about these things? Have you talked about your goals? Not just, he needs someone on the outside who's not just going to be a yes sir and, talk about the weather but someone who's really going to hold him accountable to do the right thing and to help his marriage. So I would encourage that as well. If you have trouble with that, find someone who will hold you accountable. So the last thing that we are really engaged with our clientele is educating your children. And there's lots of different ways to do this. People ask me all the time, how do we get started? If you have younger children, under 12, 15, actually under 12, Dave Ramsey has a course for children. It's excellent. I put my 2 younger kids through it. And then my teenager, I made him sit through Dave Ramsey classes and come to my class. I made him do that. So, and he implements those strategies today that we've talked about. But I think it's really important with this new generation coming up that you talk to them about money and how do you get money? That a lot of times we see this entitlement kind of generation that's being brought up, and it's really, really scary for our future of our country. And I think that it's important to teach them. My kids, if they want some baseball cards and they don't have any money, I tell them, you got to do your chores this week. If you got to earn your money if you want to buy some baseball cards. So, that's what I'm telling my boys. And Dave Ramsey's got a really neat piggy bank that has 3 slots that talks. It's a giving slot, a saving spot, and a spending slot. And it's really neat. And we got it right up in their bedroom, and it just gets them thinking about, okay, if I earn $10 today, I got to put $1 in the giving, and you just plug it right in. So if you're looking for ideas, start there. It's very inexpensive. You can Google it, go to Dave Ramsey's website, and get quite a bit of information there. So let's talk about cash flow planning. Cash flow planning, this is really easy. It's a lot easier than when I started, because cash flow planning now is, I always tell people, if you've never done a budget and you're kind of wondering, where am I at? Where's all my money going? Just go online and pull your statements, off the web. It's so easy to do that now, right? 20 years ago, you couldn't do that. You had to go find those statements. So very easy. You really need to spend your money on paper before you spend it. And you need to go through, and if you've never done a budget, at least go through and pull your historical statements and see where you've spent your money before you go in and try to develop a budget. A budget is overwhelming. And doing the Dave Ramsey classes, this is the biggest stumbling block for every family, is sitting down and trying to put a budget together, and it's hard to do. It really is. But there are tools, mint.com. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Mint, or Quicken. Some people love Excel spreadsheets. I'm one of them. You can put your own tool together and build it out. But there's all kinds of online tools to help you with that. But the thing that I tell everyone is, if you're doing your budget for the first time, just start at the top. Just flip it. So many people that I meet with, they say, well, I can only give X amount because that's all that's left. Well, let's flip it upside down. Let's start with your tithing, and then let's go number 2. You got to save for retirement. I don't know how many of you are banking on Social Security, but so who knows where that will be at. But turn it upside down and just work down from there. And it makes it a little easier than trying to say we're going to put a budget together. And sometimes that means you have to make tough decisions, on maybe selling something, or reducing some expenses or debt in some way. So, and behavioral finance right now, 80% of it is, personal finance, 80% of it's behavioral. I would say it's more than that. Some of the topics, if you know someone like me, we can answer a lot of questions very quickly and give you very good advice, but it really comes down to discipline and behavior, making the right decisions. That's really what it is, and it's over and over. You just got to be disciplined. And there is a tremendous amount of work being put into behavioral finance right now. There's great research out there, and not just on the cash flow and budgeting, but on the investing side as well. That's probably the hottest topic now in my industry. So, debt and future purchases. We've all seen Proverbs 22:7. Debt is the... Wow, how many times everyone in here counsels couples, and how many times have you walked out of a session and you're just shaking your head? You're like, how did that happen? And you don't have to answer, but sometimes you just shake your head and you're like, wow, it's sad, because it ruins families, ruins marriages, relationships. It breaks up friendships. It's a really sad situation in our consumerism environment, that everyone, all these big companies are pushing, if you want it, buy it now. We'll just give it to you. Figure out how to pay it later, right? And that's what's being pushed into our face and marketed to us. So I think we have to be very careful with debt and future purchases. And the first thing that we tell people is put together some sort of emergency fund right out of the gate. The average American has $4,000 in their emergency account. Okay? But there's like 57% that it's really skewed, because if you look at the median family, 57% has less than $1,000 saved for an emergency. The numbers are shocking, that if an emergency happens, most families just don't have any money to take care of it. They're going to have to put it on a credit card or get a cash advance. So it's really scary to know that. And only 25% of Americans have more than $10,000 saved up in an emergency account. So the numbers are staggering. And there's a lot of research on this. The CNBC just came out with another report on how we, as a country, we don't have enough saved for retirement. Most people do not. So a lot of people ask, it makes me cringe, and I hope I don't want to offend anybody in here, but FICO scores and credit scores. Credit scores, for the people that we work with, I would say that half of the people we work with, they have no idea what their credit score is. No idea, because they do not think that way. They think that at most, all they do is they'll buy a house and put a mortgage on it. But anything else they want to buy, if it's a a new bass boat or a car, motorcycle, anything they want to buy, they are college, they're going to save and they're going to pay for it in cash or with investments. And they're going to save to do that. They're not going to go in debt to buy anything else. So when I hear people talk about, wow, I'm just working on getting my credit score up and just working, and I'm like, well, you already got your house. What else do you want? That's what I'm thinking in my mind. I try to be respectful, and I hope I don't offend anyone, but I think we all need to change our mindset that who cares what your FICO score is? Who cares what those credit scores are? Because I'm going to be disciplined and I'm going to save on the front end to be able to buy that, whatever you need going forward. And if you have your emergency account, when something does happen, it doesn't matter what your FICO score is if you need to borrow a little bit of money, because it's going to be excellent, okay? So, real quickly on the home mortgage, people ask what kind of mortgage should I take out. I always put 20% down, always get a fixed rate. We want to try to get 15 years. You want to shorten that up to 15 years. And that might be tough, but that's the way you should be thinking, okay? And payments should never be more than 25% of what you take home. Not pre-tax, but after tax, okay? So that gives you more cushion. Okay, so just a couple things to think about. And then, Dave Ramsey preaches this in all of his classes, but if you do have debt, you really got to commit to just paying it off. And if you have issues with credit cards, you got to cut them up. You got to get rid of it. Okay, you got to get rid of that debt. Especially consumer debt, consumer auto debt. Got to get rid of it. Let's talk about, a lot of folks have questions on insurance, and I thought it would be important to talk about a few of these topics very quickly and just hit on them. If you have your emergency account, you have an emergency account set up, you can go to your auto insurer, your home insurer, and you can raise your deductibles, which then lowers your premiums, right? So it's just a very easy way that's going to save you money. If you can raise your deductible to $1,000 because you've got $5,000 in your emergency account, you're good. You'll make that up right away. So that's just a real easy tip to take home with auto and home insurance. Life insurance, always buy term, okay? And that's, I said that one time and, it got me in a lot of trouble with somebody in one of my classes, but I'm just going with experience. Our clients, probably about a third of our clients walk in with insurance that they have no idea what it is. They bought it from a relative, salesperson, and they've had it for 20, 30 years in some cases, and they're like, well, I just paid it. We like the idea of buying term, invest the rest, and really I challenge all of our clients, why do you own it? Why do you own insurance? And you need someone, if you're not sure why you own an insurance policy, then you need to talk to a professional like me, or have an accountability partner sit down with you and say, well, why do you own this? If you're a married couple and your kids are out of the house and they're off on their own and your house is paid for and you're pretty financially secure, why are you still owning that insurance? What risk are you transferring? There is not a whole lot of risk, maybe. So everyone's financial situation is different. You may have a lot and you want to transfer that risk if something happened to you that your spouse is taking care of, and your kids and your mortgage. But there are certain situations where you just don't need insurance, or you don't need as much. So just think about that. Be careful with the sales techniques and the investment/insurance. Be careful with that. Disability insurance, very, very important. I've seen it happen. I've seen it implemented. It does work, and it happens in very strange ways sometimes. The disability can creep up. I know someone in their mid-40s that was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Very healthy individual, played pro sports, and lost his ability to be a professional. I'm thinking about another situation where someone developed meningitis, lost the ability to use their hands, which their hands were important for their profession, and disability kicked in. Very important, very important. It happens. So, and usually you can get, if you have an emergency fund, again, if you have an emergency fund, you can extend the deferral period before disability kicks in, okay, and you can extend it, which makes it cheaper. Nobody should be buying short-term disability. You should be looking at long-term disability. You can get, if you have an emergency fund, you can get right through a short-term situation. But long-term is what everyone in this room should be worried about. If you can't preach for the next 15, 20 years, that might be a problem financially, okay? And that's what you need to transfer that risk over to long-term disability. Long-term care insurance, I'll just say it's very expensive. The best time to buy it is between age 55 and 65, and it's very expensive. There are some good products out there that will help you with that, but again, it has to be your situation and whether you can afford it. But it is out there, and there's very few policies that are worth it. But if you ever have questions, find a fee-only professional to ask about that. Not someone who's going to get a commission, but a fee-only professional. And umbrella insurance, again, this is something that if you don't have a lot in assets, you don't need it. Okay, if you inherited some money along the way, you come from a family, might be wealthy, maybe you've invested for many years and you have a net worth that's over $500,000, maybe over $1 million, then you need to start thinking about umbrella insurance. Umbrella insurance goes over and above, like if you have a teen driver and they're at fault in an accident and you're sued, then it will protect your family's assets. Rentals, if you have rentals or you have maybe a boat that you take out every once in a while, those are some ideas on when you might want to consider umbrella insurance. But most people, I know some people that have it and they don't need it. Okay, you just don't need it. It's an extra expense. If you don't need it, shouldn't buy it. Okay, let's go to investing. So investing, this is one of my favorite parts, because the reason why I got into this business was I was at, if anybody's familiar with Circleville, we have a savings bank, and I was in line. I was probably 10 or 11 years old in line, through the drive-through. It was a Saturday. My dad was with me, and he was explaining to me the concept of interest and how you can put your money into an account and you get paid, just to put money into the bank. You get paid for that. And that was back when you did get interest, many years ago. I think it was maybe 6%, just to hold your money in the bank. And I just was like, wow, that is really neat. So if I just save money and stick it in here, I'm going to make more money. And so it's compound interest. Then as I got older, I learned compound interest, which is pretty phenomenal as well. And but that's how I was so interested in that concept that really I always wanted to learn more about investing, and that's where I am today. So, but everyone should be saving 15% of their pre-tax income. I know that, again, I would imagine very few people in here do that, because if we polled the country, very few people do that, period. And we get comfortable and we get some of our toys in our house and we're like, well, I just can't save that much, and I know it's hard, but that's where we should be at if you want to make it. I don't want to go into Social Security. Whether I do think it will be around in some form, but I think there will definitely be changes to it at some point. And Yeah, just think about this. What if they just defer Social Security until you're 75? And then you'll start receiving it then. That means you better have saved a little bit more because you're going to need something to cover that gap. So Social Security, the average age, or not the average, the retirement age for most people in this room is going to be 67, which not everyone realizes that. That's when the government says you really kind of should retire. If you want to take an early retirement, they will allow you to take it, depending on your age, around 62 or 63. Okay, so I had a conversation with someone in their early 40s, and they had no idea that you had to wait that long to get Social Security. So I was shocked. That's why I thought I better mention it today. So, and then a lot of people ask, what's the average? The average retiree will get a little over $1,300 a month from Social Security. That's a little over $16,000 a year. So everyone's thinking about their personal situation and how much is $16,000 going to take care of for me in retirement. But that's the average, for the country. So, so you better save. We better save, or you're just going to work forever till God takes you home. So I do believe in Roth IRAs first. This is another one of just my 2 cents on my soapbox. I think the tax rates are as low today as there ever be. So I think that we're at probably a generational low in tax rates, and they'll probably go up in the future because we're going to have to pay for this debt that we have. So Roth IRAs, you're paying the tax today. You put the money in this account. It grows. You can put, if you're under 50, you can put $5,500 in. If you're over 50, you can put $6,500 in per spouse. And it grows tax-free. You put in $5,500 and you retire, it's worth $20,000. You take the money out and there's no taxes out of that, okay? There's no taxes taken out of that. So you pay your taxes today versus paying them when you're in your 60s, when you're taking the money out. Traditional IRAs is the other way. You get a tax break on the front end, but you pay your tax down the road. So if you think tax rates are going up, you do the Roth, okay? So that's why I recommend that. So compound interest, eighth wonder of the world. He who earns it, he who understands it earns it. He who doesn't understand it pays it. Who said that? Albert Einstein. Yeah, and it's so true, right?
I thought it was God.
Yeah, it's just math. It really is. It's just math, and it's the idea. If you save it and you can earn it, and you can earn money on the earnings, it does take off. We have a client that husband and wife never made more than $40,000. They've got kids. So they have a family. They paid for their kids' college, but never made more than $40,000. They've got over $2 million today. They're both in their 80s. And they didn't live tremendously frugal. They just lived a normal life, but they just invested on a monthly basis every year, or every month. And he was investing in the 60s and just kept growing. And we're talking like just investing $25, $50 a month back in those days. And he grew a tremendous net worth. Okay, all of our clients have a story like that, and it's amazing. It's kind of neat to see it. Because it's like shame on me if I don't do it myself, But hopefully, a few of you can take some of these concepts away as well. So, I'll give you a quick example. I didn't put this up here. I didn't put it in my presentation. One example is if you put, you start when you're 19. So you talk to maybe some of your kids. Put $2,000 away for 8 years, okay? For 8 years, and you get 12% a year. That's a little bit high, but $2,000 a year for 8 years from 19 to 26, and you never touch it again. Anybody have an idea how much it's worth?
About $2 million.
A little bit over, yeah, $2.3 million. $2.3 million. Only put $16,000 in it, in the investment.
What will it be worth
Net?
when they're 65?
It would be $2.3 million.
At 65.
Yeah. And that's just math. That's not, you can run your own spreadsheet and figure that out with compound interest. It's, that's all it is. So it just takes discipline, and that 15%, it doesn't take, the sooner the better. There's a lot of, you can do these, the same situation where I wrote this down, $2,000 a year for 38 years from age 27 to 65, you only have $1.5 million only. Yeah. So it's better to start early, even to start early and stop, than to wait. So you don't want to delay. If anything, it tells everyone in this room, start now. Just start looking at it. Don't say, well, I'll do it after the first of the year. I'm going to wait till I get a raise, and then do it. No, do it now and find ways to save. Insurance, annuity products, annuities, big commissions. If you have them, you might want to consider looking at getting out of them. Insurance products, most of the time they're not put in place in the right way. They're just sales tools, and they're big commissions to the salesperson who sold them to you. So most people should not be looking at individual stocks either. Individual stocks are really hard to manage if you're not a professional, and you really have to be unemotional, completely unemotional about your investing and your money. And believe it or not, even folks like professionals like myself, we a lot of times hire other people to manage our money, so it's not personal, because like I told you with behavioral finance, it's really hard to get your emotions in check and to keep your disciplines, when to buy, when to sell. And when you have individual stocks, it's really hard. Because they move a lot quicker than the overall market, and a lot more. The volatility is a lot greater. So my experience, if you set up a monthly investment plan, doing $50 a month, $100 a month, that you're going to see the best results. And take your hands off the wheel, just let it go. Okay, just let it go. You should be looking. We use Fidelity investments, Fidelity and Vanguard. They're the lowest cost, and Fidelity is probably the easiest one to use. Very, very low cost. Actually, Fidelity just 2 weeks ago came out with a mutual fund that's free. It's an index that's free, and it's kind of like they want to get you in the door and try to get you to buy other things, but you can actually invest for free now. That's how cheap it has gone. So, and I would, once you get to a certain level, and if you've got, I don't know if anyone in here has over like $100,000 in investments, then you want to start looking at diversifying, buying large company mutual funds and small company mutual funds, mixing it with some international companies like Toyota, or funds that hold companies like Toyota and international companies as well. And finally, do not try to time the market. You pick a discipline, you pick an allocation, you pick great funds, and you stick with it for like 10 years. That's how you do well. There's the average investor, so you'll see a mutual fund that's performed like 11% per year over the last 10 years. We have research that shows what the average investor performed inside of that mutual fund. And most of the time, it's about 60% less than what the mutual fund did, because they're always buying and selling at the wrong time. Trump tweets something about tariffs and the markets are down 5%, and everyone's like, oh, we're going to have a trade war and let's get out of the market. And, a week later, it's right back up 5%. You just lost 5% just like that. And then it gets magnified in financial crises and tech bubbles and real estate bubbles. You do not, if anything, you want to develop an asset allocation, and we preach this to our clients, that you work from strength. When you do see volatility, that you buy into it. You want to do the opposite. That's how Warren Buffett and Peter Lynch and so many great investors, Sir John Templeton, that's how they became so famous, is because they just did the opposite. They realized that Coca-Cola is not going out of business. Their stock price went down 50%, but they're going to be around. There's a lot of great American companies that are going to be just fine. And but the markets jump around on emotions. So, and that will be forever. It will be like that as long as humans are involved. So, all right. I've got 5 minutes here. I'm going to go into the last two topics. I want to put this in here because through Dave Ramsey classes, I've seen some almost horror stories with this. The planning for college is just, I would go home and just almost cry when I hear these stories. The one that I'm thinking of is a couple was $180,000 in debt. Their daughter went through school to be a teacher, and she graduated without a certification, even a teaching certification. So she still had to go get that certificate, I guess. I'm not real sure how all that works, but I thought, okay, so she has $180,000 in debt, and I didn't say anything to this couple, and I just prayed with them and just felt terrible for them. But she wanted to teach at a Christian school as well, and we all know, what that means. So I just thought, well, a lot of bad decisions that went around there. I just don't think that made a whole lot of sense, and you pretty much have, I don't want to say ruined a couple lives, but you've dug a really big hole for a couple families by making those decisions. So you got to use your head. You really got to be careful with this. And when you're counseling, some of the people in your church, I'd be very adamant, because I've heard other stories that are exactly the same way. I know another person who same exact situation. They're $150,000 in debt. This lady paid for her daughter to go to a private school and she to be a teacher again. And she got married, and the mother took out the loans, thinking that her daughter would pay her back. And her daughter got married right out of college, and she's not even working, and she doesn't have the money to pay her back. And this lady she's going to have to move out of her house. And you would never know it. You would never know it. So when you're looking at your planning, your kids are not going to pay for your retirement. They're not. I haven't seen it. I've not seen it yet. And I don't know if you all know somebody who's got their kids paying for their retirement, but I haven't seen it yet. So think about that. When you're saving for college, and you don't owe your children a free ride. You don't owe it to them. I think the best thing that happened to me, I had a athletic scholarship, but I had to pick up the rest because my parents couldn't afford it, but I had to figure it out. And that was great, because it put responsibility on me from day one that you better figure it out and get it done. And it made me appreciate it more. Appreciate that college. So we're very careful with our clients. I'm free to speak to everyone in this room, because I just want to give you good advice. But some people are very passionate that I don't want my kid to have student loan debt when they get out of school. Just know what you're getting into, okay? That could be a really bad decision for you financially in your retirement. So just know that. If you do want to save, if you do have some extra funds, use the College Advantage Direct Plan through Ohio. That's what I have my kids in, and it's very, very low cost plan, cheap, very cheap, but very effective, and you do get Ohio tax breaks for putting money in there.
That College Advantage Direct Plan, though, is just if they go to a state college?
No, nope. It can be used for Mount Vernon, anyone. As long there's one situation where we had a client that went to a missionary school. It was not accredited, and it was more like a training for a year than it was the actual school. That did not pass the test. So, but yeah.
As long as it's an accredited college, it's good.
Yep. As long as it's accredited college. It does not have to be in Ohio. That was a rule that was around 20 years ago, but they got rid of that. So I have a few minutes. I'm just going to run through this very quick. The roadmap for success. This is Dave Ramsey's. This is not mine. I took it. These are the quick and easy steps that will help you take off and to help. So if you want to just write these down, Yeah, they'll help you get started. And here's a book. If anybody wants to read Dave Ramsey's book on all these steps and a lot of these concepts, I think it's like $10 on Amazon. You can come up. I just brought it so you could take a picture of it and maybe try to find it. You can find it used. But it's a quick read. I read it years ago in like one night. So it's not hard. It's not complicated at all. But there's forms in the back that help you with budgeting as well. And that's probably worth the price of it itself. So that's all I had. The next hour will be on effective giving. Really looking forward to that session. Very passionate about that. But does anyone have any questions?
Just back to the exception for clergy for the use of housing.
The housing allowance?
Well, the fact that at retirement, if you use it for housing, even Roth versus anything else, if you use it for housing, you still don't pay taxes.
Yep.
So that's a benefit for us that everybody needs to know.
Yes.
So even if you didn't use Roth, the Roth approach,
Yes.
and you're going to get taxed at the end, you're not going to get taxed at the end if you use it for housing.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
If you, good, bad, and ugly, did some of those, but not all of those, but you're at a spot of about 55, what's your advice to say, okay, let's start from here?
At 55, save as much as you possibly can. Yeah, that's what I would say. Eliminate your debt as quickly as possible, number one, and then just try to save as much as possible. I don't think there's one formula for it, but I think that we've asked people to sell things, get rid of toys, things that aren't necessary, downsize. We're very adamant if it's not working. There's nothing wrong with, moving into a smaller house, even an apartment for a season. But sometimes you have to do drastic things to really get your financial house in order, especially if someone's 55 and they're not able to save anything and they're stuck, well, then you need to do something drastically different. And you need to work with someone who's willing to sit down with you, pray with you, and say, we got to make something work here. I think it's important for everyone in here as pastors, you want to be financially secure. To be the most effective pastor you can be, you have to be on top of your game financially. It gives you more confidence, and you can speak from experience as well. I just think it's so important, because if your financial house is not in order, it's got to be hard to be a good preacher, right? How can you counsel when you're not doing it yourself?
When I do premarital counseling, that statistic that you said about investing,
Yeah.
I pull that right out of Dave Ramsey's stuff and I show them, and it's just, their eyes, because they're always usually about 20, 21, sometimes they're in college, and it's like,
Yeah.
they just look at you like, really?
Yeah.
That's what that is? As a grandparent, I want to put $1,000 when my grandkids are born.
Yeah.
Just, let it sit there for 65 years and then let them pay for my retirement.
There you go. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it depends on whether you give
I'll be
them,
130.
depends on whether you give them control of that money and when you do.
Real world scenarios on our district TV, a lot of bivocational ministers.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously in the church, there's not a lot of money floating around, right? And a lot of our ministers are trying to decide, do I pay off this debt, or do I take that extra 10% that I have, and should I invest it first? What would your advice be?
Pay off your debt.
Okay.
Pay off your debt. There's, everything until you get to the mortgage. Okay, that's what I would say. Mortgages are healthy debt. That's fine. Go ahead.
Student loan debt, if
Yeah.
it's at 3%, 4%,
I would still pay it off.
Pay off your credit cards first before you get to that.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Yeah, it's very simple to figure out. You don't even need to meet with a professional. Your highest interest rate debt, pay it off first.
So,
Okay.
my situation, I'm 31, I have 3 kids. The only debt that me and my wife have is my student loan debt.
Yeah.
And even that, with income-based repayment, I'm paying between $0 and $10 a month on 2 loans. And I think it's Navient now, was Sally Mae, which I'm pretty sure the devil is the CEO of that organization.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
They won't help you with anything.
Yeah.
But in that situation, like my wife and I, we own our cars.
It's great. Yeah.
But we're struggling to figure out how to invest because I'm an associate pastor. My salary is
Yeah.
so low.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do I do? Where that's
Yeah. You can start investing for like $25 a month.
Okay.
So you can do it very inexpensively through Fidelity. What are your interest rates on your student loans?
Between 4 and 6%. I think.
I would tackle those first. Okay.
Well, again, with the income-based repayment, we're at $0 payments. I need to look into this more. The companies. If I apply for like debt forgiveness in 10 years with income-based repayments, then I don't have to pay anything.
Yeah. So there are some programs like that. Yes. Yeah. That's super. If you can find programs like that, utilize them. The best you can. That's some things I'm not familiar with. I know it's out there, but yeah.
TD, Nazarene ministers, we have this 403B.
Yep.
That the church